Welcome back everybody to the Wandering Samurai Study, in which we review and analyze every single act told in Rurouni Kenshin, and today's act is Act 77, Prelude to Battle. Okay, so normally in the series, I tend to focus on the narrative beats of the chapter. I don't really spend a whole lot of time focusing on the art, but in this chapter, the art really stood out to me. Not that the art is bad and hasn't been bad. It's actually really cool to kind of go back and look at the art now and then look at the art from the beginning and just see how dramatically different it's been. Like, we've really come a long ways. But aside from that, I really just love the paneling in this chapter. Like, it really just stood out to me in a way that it hasn't before. Especially this picture right here of Iori up in the air looking down at his parents who are horrified. It's just so dramatic. And Cho's art here, where he's looking down at this couple and he's so menacing. Like, it really sells the tension and the fear that he is exhibiting to this couple. It's really good. But we'll get into Cho after the chapter summary review, and so let's get into that. Now that Kenshin's recovered from Misao's attack from the previous chapter, he and Okina scold Misao about leaving Seiku alone about making another Sakabato. However, the young shinobi makes her way to Seiku's place to try and convince him otherwise. Moments before she arrives, Cho begins to ask Seiku about his father's last masterpiece and uses his son Iori as a hostage to get information about the last sword. The couple tells Cho the location of the sword after Cho throws Iori up into the air, demonstrating that he's not afraid to hurt their child. After Cho makes his leave for the final masterpiece, Misao arrives to find out about the situation. She sends information to Kenshin and Okina, and Kenshin makes his way. Cho finds Kenshin waiting for him at the location of Shakku's final sword. Alright, so let's start off by talking about Shakku and his final masterpiece, a god sword. We find out in this chapter that a god sword is an offering to a shrine for the gods. And in that way, what it means, a god sword is a sword that hasn't been unsheathed. It's for the gods and to remain untainted by human hands. But what it also means is that this sword hasn't been seen by anybody. Seiku doesn't know what his father's final sword looks like. And if this is your second go through at the Rurouni Kenshin manga, this is a hint at what kind of sword that sword is. And I'm just going to leave it at that for the people who know. And if you don't know, then just keep on reading. You'll find out soon enough. But in universe, what this means is that it's absolutely important to Seiku that his father's reputation doesn't further be tarnished for how he is already known as this death swordsmith. So much so that he almost kind of forgets about his son. It kind of feels that like Seiku in this moment is more focused on his father's reputation than he is on the well-being of his son. And that's not to say that his son's well-being isn't important, because we find out after Cho leaves that he was also worried about his son, because if he did give him that information much earlier, he knew the kind of man that Cho is and that he would want to use the final sword on his son. But for Seiku, it's really tough because he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, not only will his father's final sword be stained with blood, but it will be the blood of his grandson, Iori. And that's just too much for him to bear in that moment. And like, even though he doesn't have a plan on how to go about this, it just absolutely terrifies him. And that's just too much for him to bear. His wife, though, she's a little bit more focused on it, and she's more willing to be like, here, it's right here. I don't care. Just give me my son back. And when Iori isn't returned, it just really sells the tension and the kind of man that Cho is, and kind of proves Seiku's fears. But that's Shakku's final sword. Now, we've already talked a little bit about Seiku, but kind of further elaborating on Seiku, in this chapter we can kind of really see the resentment that he feels towards his father. He's trying to protect his father's reputation and to keep it from further being tainted, but here is the proof in the pudding that he does have some resentment towards him. He knows about his father's reputation, and it has affected him because when we first meet him, he says that he gave up swordsmithing for a life of peace, and he just wants to live a peaceful life. So when Iori is kidnapped and he's freaking out, he's breaking down, he says that he just wants to be left alone. He just wants to live in peace. It's just the weight of the community coming down on him, the weight of the world coming down on him, and how like he's done everything that he possibly could to deflect the weight that his father has thrown at him, like the name of his father, and how everybody else has kind of looked down on them. It's too much to bear now that his son is being wrapped into that world, and he's done his best to kind of protect his son from it. It's heavy stuff, man. It's really heavy. And of course, I know that it's a little bit easy to kind of like write him off as like dude, what are you doing? Like your son just got kidnapped and you're focusing on your dad's reputation. The mom is the one that's really focused on him. Like it's kind of easy to kind of dismiss him in that way, but I think it's because he understands the type of person that Cho is. He tells her that look at his eyes. Those aren't the eyes of a sword enthusiast. Those are the eyes of a serial killer. And I think that because of the world that he grew up in and the type of weapons that his father created, he understands what he's looking at. He probably grew up around these type of people coming to him, really excited to use his craft, his father's craft, to kill. I wouldn't be surprised if Seiku actually met Jine at some point. I don't know. It'd be kind of funny. Alright, so let's go ahead and talk about Cho. Cho is absolutely dominant in this situation. Cho, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, he's very much looking down on this couple. The art really exemplifies that. Like the angles that are chosen, it's him kind of looking down, like, and his eyes just very menacing. Like you can tell that he's very unhinged, and he's so dominant in this situation. I have to imagine that this whole exchange probably took place in the span about 5 to 10 minutes, but in those 5 to 10 minutes he absolutely destroyed or crushed the spirits of this young couple who's just trying to live their lives. The technique that he uses, the reverse sword sheathing, I think that's what he called it, where he throws Iori up into the air, is such a unique way of demonstrating that he could kill and can kind of do it with style, you know, and like the way he worded it, that he's like, oh, here's a sword trick, you want to see it? And you know, he doesn't hurt Iori in that moment, but he goes, I might miss next time. I've never been good about being able to repeat the same trick twice, you know. It's just the horror. It's like, in that moment, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but I can imagine as a parent, just like their worst nightmare just coming true, where this serial killer, this man just shows up and just decided to pick on them because of the reputation of the father, you know. It's just, man, the sins of the father, right? But a little bit more on Cho. Seiku told his wife that this isn't a man who is a sword enthusiast. This is a madman who loves to kill, right? In a way, though, Seiku is right about Cho, but he is also knowledgeable on swords. And we'll get into that in the next chapters, but in this moment, like the reverse sword sheathing is a way of him demonstrating that he is an experienced swordsmith and that he knows what he's talking about. Because as we've seen already, just like the name Arai Shakku, like lit a fire in him, and we saw like how fast he got to this couple's house to get knowledge or to get information about that final sword. Like Cho is really in on this. Like he is a collector. To Seiku, it doesn't really mean all that much that he's a sword collector. Like in that moment, he's more focused on like, hey, this is a man who's dangerous. And it's not wrong, but it's also yeah, he's dangerous, but he also is a enthusiast, a hobbyist when it comes to the swords. I don't know. That's all I really have for this chapter. This was such a hard video to record. I really struggled with it, but I'm hoping that it's just this chapter and we kind of get back into the groove after this. I'm just so glad that this video is finished. My God. It took several attempts, several days of trying to record this video. It's not always easy. But this has been Act 77 of Rurouni Kenshin. If you like this video and you want to see more, then consider subscribing to the channel, leave a thumbs up, and comment down below something that you enjoyed about this chapter. I really love the art, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. Let me know what you guys think. I'll see you guys all in the comment section down below, but I'm gonna go get some rest because, as I mentioned, this video took a lot of energy out of me. Bye, everybody.
Oro.